Minister, earlier we were discussing the impact of the Health and Hospitals Agreement on the budget. I want to also discuss the Thriving Kids program. So the government has announced it's a joint package of $4 billion over 5 years. What portion of that funding will the Commonwealth contribute?
I think.
Two.
Yeah, it's half.
$2 billion.
Two, right. And so that's two is spread over the 5 years. Is it evenly over the 5 years? Does it scale up over the 5 years?
I think it was included in the announcement, wasn't it, about the allocation to states? Yeah.
Bear with us, Senator.
1.4.
Senator, sorry, it's Natasha Cole, First Assistant Secretary, Social Policy Division. The funding, the $2 billion provided by the Commonwealth, is actually split into two components. There's $1.4 billion going to the states and territories on a population basis to assist them in terms of services which they can provide for this, younger cohort of people who need assistance. And then there's $600 million which the Commonwealth will provide for stuff which is better done on a national basis.
Okay. So direct to the relevant organisations, that's $600 million.
Sorry?
Direct to the relevant organisations, excuse me.
It could be.
It could be, yeah. Some of those decisions will be made through the budget process about the Commonwealth's allocation of our share. And then 1.4 of our funding will go to the states who will build the services and co-fund them to essentially rebuild services that have been lost since the NDIS came in.
And the states will contribute $2 billion on a population basis, presumably as well?
Yes, that's correct.
The $2 billion Commonwealth commitment, does that come from savings to the NDIS from the new target lower growth rate?
We've made provision for Thriving Kids, so no, it's unrelated to that. Because this, if you remember, I think we've been trying for some time to work with the states on Thriving Kids.
Yes, I understand.
And so we've made a provision to get those services going. We haven't, it's going to be progressed better now that we've got agreement from National Cabinet. But it's not linked to any decisions that haven't, or that might be taken in the future about how we moderate the growth in the NDIS.
Sure, but the Minister for Health and the NDIS has publicly announced a growth target for the NDIS, which is lower than it was previously. That will save much more than $2 billion over the forward estimates if it's successful, I assume.
Yes, but you asked me whether Thriving Kids was part of that.
Yeah.
It's not. We've made a provision for that. We haven't taken reflected in any of the budget numbers further moderation behind the initial one to get it to 8%. There's, and we needed the states and territories on board for some of that as well, which is why National Cabinet will allow that, where they have agreed to try and work towards that target.
What is the expected save from the lower target NDIS growth over the forwards?
I think it's hard. It depends. It depends on when those decisions are taken.
When which decisions are taken?
And reflected in a budget. We haven't done that. Minister Butler has said, look, this is what I essentially think needs to happen.
Yeah.
States and territories have agreed that that's a desirable outcome. But in terms of translating that into a budget decision and costing that has not been done.
So you haven't costed the lower growth rate in the NDIS yet that he's committed the government to? No? Will that be costed?
No. It was the original work that was done was around moderating growth to 8%.
Yep.
And that's been reflected in the budget.
Right. So that's what I'm asking a question about. What is the save from getting NDIS growth down to 8% over the forwards?
I haven't got a final number on that. I don't have a number that I can give you.
Surely the officials, someone will know that.
We can have a look and otherwise take it on notice and find out. can give you as the delta.
This is a pretty important
It is.
budget item.
Yeah, it
very
is.
expensive program.
It is.
So, I mean...
But it's also subject to discussion, further discussion, you know, through the budget process. And so...
I'm not asking you to give me unannounced things. I'm just asking
Yeah.
what you've announced already. I mean...
we haven't announced a costing. Minister Butler has said growing at 8% is not sustainable. And he's said that a more realistic... I can't remember the words in the speech at the press club, but it was working towards a 5 to 6%.
Yeah, I'm not holding you to that.
Yeah.
Because I understand that work hasn't happened.
And, you know, it would depend on how... You know, it would depend... There would be a number of things that would depend upon. And so we're not in a position to give you a number on that today.
But I understood from Mr Yiannopoulos' answer that the government's policy of bringing the growth rate from well above 8% down to 8% has already happened and is already reflected in the budget. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
It's not the additional save of bringing it down to 5 or 6%, right?
That's right.
So just tell me what the save is to get it down to 8%.
That would have been
I'd have to take it on notice.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was published. It wasn't published in MAFO.
It was
earlier, and we'd have to take it on notice to work out
was-
what that number looks like.
Yeah, 23, 24 budget, I think.
Often there are people in the room who have this within their own knowledge and come forward and let you know. I notice there's not actually a lot of finance officials in the room
There's
today.
more in the room behind.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
if they've come up to Parliament House to assist you to give evidence, then if they know this number, they should really come and help. I think it is better to have them in the room
Well,
if they've...
I mean,
Senator, I think
yeah, I
we've
think-
got. I'm sorry, we've got the official here that is best placed to possibly be able to answer it, and we just don't have that number in front of us, and I don't want to sort of do a
But I
calculation
mean,
on the fly.
what is the point of having a room full of people sitting there? They could be back at the department
Senator
doing
Patterson,
their jobs.
I mean,
if-
these
No, no, it's a
decisions were
serious question.
taken a couple of years ago. You're asking for what was the budget impact essentially of, I think, a decision taken in the 23-24 budget and how that fed in across the forward estimates. We don't have that number with us. We are happy to provide it to you.
Okay, if you could, that would be great. And obviously the decision to reduce the spend even further down to 5 or 6%, that will be reflected in the upcoming budget.
Well, if we are in a position to make those decisions, yes.
Yeah, okay,
Like,
right. If decisions
there's-
haven't been taken, I accept that.
A decision is taken about the to continue to trend down on the growth costs in the NDIS.
But,
Yeah.
Minister,
But in order to deliver that, you need to make a series of decisions. Like, you just don't
Sure.
say, okay, let's go to 5%. You need to understand what that looks like, the time frame for that, what year that might come in, how you would get there. Like, does it go... Like, at the moment, I think we're 7.6 growth. We've come down from 22%. Well, it was growing on average at about over 13%. We're down to 7.6. You know, there's still pressure in the scheme, and so that needs to be managed. And so to get it down even further, you know, the government needs to take some decisions, and states and territories need to take some about what that looks like and how long that might take to get there.
Sure, but did you say that to Minister Butler before he publicly announced that was the government's target?
Well, yes. I mean, he went through some of that in his speech.
Yeah.
You know, he did. I
Well,
mean, you know.
It's the government that's put this number out there, and you're saying you haven't done the work to work out how to get down
No,
to
that's
that
not
number.
right. I think that's not right. I mean, I think anyone would say a program the size of the NDIS growing at the rate it's growing is difficult from a budget sustainability point of view. I think everyone would acknowledge that.
Everyone would say that now. A few years ago, people were saying there was no problem.
We've reached agreement with the states and territories who are important partners here. There's a lot of reform work going on in the NDIS, and we will work through all of those issues. There is a lot of work going on around the NDIS, both in the Commonwealth Government and around the country.
But as it stands today, you don't have a plan to get it to 5 or 6%.
Well, there is a lot of work underway, Senator Patterson.
I'm sure that's the case, but
So-
that's...
And if and when decisions are made that are going to be, you know, have a budget impact, they would be reflected in the next economic update.
Okay. I'm about to move on to another topic. I wonder, Senator Mackenzie, did you want to share the call with the Chair's permission?